Okay, I want to hear these stories.
Well, let's see. I was talking about when I first got over to Delhi, we went down to Calcutta, and we flew to the eastern part of India where the sea coast goes back down around towards the Malay Peninsula. And we went to a place called Cox's Bazar, which I thought was an unusual name.
Yeah.
But it was apparently a British airbase, or not airbase, a British base for like several hundred years or something. And they had a swimming pool right at the edge of the ocean there, all cemented in, but it was very ancient looking cement, like it had been there forever. And we went swimming there and had a good time, and came back out again. And I thought, those British have been around for a long time. And when I was up in Lido, I went to some place that's not too far away, but it's far enough away so we had to backtrack through the jungles. And we came to an ancient British fort that hadn't been occupied since like 1680 or something, where they built it. And it was 2 stories high, but the trees are growing off the top because their roots go down 2 stories into the ground, and the trees come up on top, and it just obliterates it. The jungle swallows up things.
Oh my God.
And,
What kind of trees were they?
who knows? They're just trees that grow in the jungle.
Wow.
Kind of a wild deal. And then later on, we got a flight down to Rangoon. Rangoon is in the southern part of Burma, down on the coast, because Lord Louis Mountbatten was coming to celebrate the victory of Burma. He was like Viceroy of India and Burma, so he had big titles, you know. And so we flew down there and took some high brass down and stuff like that. And we weren't necessarily part and parcel. We're sort of transportation guys that fly the planes and get them down there.
Yeah.
But I did live in the British Officers Club there, and it was very good because they put you in a bed and they surround it with mosquito net.
Oh yeah.
And then they wake you up in the morning and there's a Mem Saab type of guy that's there with hot tea, and you're not even out of the sack yet. You know?
Wow.
And you get your hot tea and stuff, and you sit up. And then in the evening you go to the bar, and I pulled one of the great faux pas of my life at the bar.
What'd you do?
The British drink scotch. You know.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm not used to scotch. I think I'll have bourbon whiskey or blended whiskey or something like that. So I had that, and I was sitting there, and I was standing there drinking. And then some other Britishers came up, and they were drinking their scotch. And they'd say, well, hello, Yank. They'd say, would you like some scotch? I says, no, I'm drinking whiskey. And they started to laugh. And
They laughed?
They were
Because
convulsed
Scotch
because
whiskey.
Scotch whiskey is whiskey.
Whiskey, say.
But to me, Scotch wasn't whiskey. Scotch was Scotch, and bourbon whiskey was whiskey. And they thought that was the tears are streaming down there. He's drinking whiskey. He's not drinking Scotch. He's drinking whiskey. And they thought that was pretty funny. So
Oh, what a riot.
I really had a bad time with those guys.
Yeah.
They sort of let it happen.
Oh, gee.
Then I get back up into Lido, and they had one training plane, the same kind that I used in Texas in my basic training, a single-engine little plane, an AT-7 or something like that. And once in a while, I get that, and I take off, and I go over the jungle, and I find a river, and I go down the rivers. And with a little plane, you can follow the river.
Oh yeah.
And then I'd come across elephants, you know, and
Oh, my
you almost
God.
never come across elephants flying around in a little plane, so
Yeah.
we got to do that.
They
sort of
flying
thing.
around the little plane?
No, they weren't. They were down the river, and they'd look up at me, and they were disturbed because
Oh, I
they
bet.
weren't used to seeing a little plane like that.
Well, I bet you saw so many things that were so totally different.
Oh yeah,
In that
and nobody
area.
else ever sees them. you know.
No.
I talked to them about war experiences, and it doesn't sink in because nobody else does it.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that did it. I think.
Well, like the towns in India and things, where they must have been extremely primitive. Well, probably all over.
Yeah, well, they were very poor people too. But then they never have winters. They have monsoons, but they don't have winters where they freeze to death as well. Although we did have some pretty cool weather up in Lido. My houseboy would say, "Too much cold, too much cold," and he was on some sort of drugs, you know, like wherever they grow. Maybe it's poppy stuff or
Oh
something.
no.
Because the kids were doing that even then, the native kids. But
Huh. Now, what was your houseboy?
he kind of
cleaned
cleaned up the tent. It wasn't really a house, but we called him a houseboy.
How many were in the tent? Was it
Well, there's usually
several?
4 of us, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they would clean up. And then, of course, we built a little stand outside with sticks with, you put your helmet in upside down so you had something to wash it in the morning like this. And you do it in your helmet.
And then you had to
throw
wear the
water.
helmet?
Well, no, we didn't wear helmets when we were flying, see?
Oh.
But as part of the GI issue, you have to have a helmet.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't know what else to do with it, so we made a wash basically.
Well,
That's right, you use the helmet for washing and for a lot of things. Boy, it was...
Yeah,
Really?
handy device that. You could cook things in it if you had to.
is that right?
The helmet, you had the helmet liner, then the helmet went over it, see?
Yeah, they were separable.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to put the liner in it, you just had the helmet shield itself.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's neat. So the houseboy was a native of India?
He's a native of India, right.
And he
And,
could speak
you know,
English, though.
he's cleaning up one time and he knocked over something and broke it. And I, being rather calm in nature, I didn't get particularly disturbed. But all the other houseboys from all up and down the tent came around and sat down, squatted,
Oh, to see
waiting
what
for
was gonna
me to
happen?
read him out, see?
Oh, no.
And I decided not to read him out. And they left kind of disappointed because they wanted to see him get his just desserts, you know, because he
funny.
broke something. Well, it wasn't that important whatever he broke. I figured so I wouldn't worry about
Oh, that's funny.
it. And one time when I was coming out of Kashmir, I stopped in Delhi for a few days. And we met some, Red Cross type girls or some Army nurses or some women. They were women anyway, they belonged to the American Forces. And they wanted to get to Calcutta the worst way. And I said, well, I'm going there, but the ATC, which is the Air Transport Command, wouldn't let me take them for some regulation reason. So I said, well, why don't you go down the road to this other Air Force base that's like 20 miles down, and just be there. At a certain time, I'll pick them up. So I took up from Delhi, on my plane, I'm going to Calcutta, and I get what I think is out of range, and I cut my radio off so I couldn't transmit to them. I could hear them. And I cut the throttles, and I came down to this field, and I can hear them yelling at me. They're yelling my number, aircraft so-and-so, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And I landed, and I only cut the right engine, and they come running out, and they jump in, because that's the side the door's on. And I start the engine again and take off, and they're still yelling at me, plane so-and-so, what are you up to,
Oh, no.
Well, I got them all the way to Calcutta from there. I figured they might catch up to me sometime, but they never did, because I was in Troop Carrier Command, and it was a different organ. I wasn't ATC, so I couldn't be one of their boys. I'm a different kind of a boy. I'm there taking generals up to Kashmir or something, and coming back and doctors or whatever.
Oh, my God.
So we had some fun times, too.
It sounds like...
Because we like to impress women, because you didn't see them too often.
Yeah.
We do what we put for them.
Well, one motor bomb.
Right, on the ground, but not taken off.
One engine bomb.
So that's
Oh, those are neat.
those
Now,
are
this
little
map,
anecdotes.
this map that we discovered
Yeah.
has it's let's see, Kunming, China to
Chabwa.
Chabwa, India.
Mhm.
Did you see
And
this?
that covers most of the area we flew over, most of the time. And we get farther south once in a while, and farther north once in a while. But over here is a lake that Kunming is the upper top part. It says Kunming.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this part here is Burma, and this part here is India. And we were stationed in Lido, which is an area right here.
Now, was that higher up? You mentioned...
Well, this is in a
cold-
river valley. This is the Brahmaputra River. We have to fly over these mountains to get down to Burma. And we get to various towns here. And then we get down here to Bama. This is probably Bama. And then we take off and go here, and this way over to that lake in China.
Oh, yeah.
And then we might go northwest to Chongqing, but we didn't do that very often. That was done earlier in the war, but not so much when I was there, because the fighting was getting down into southern China rather than northern
They
China.
used to call that the CBI.
Yes,
that was
China,
also
Burma,
C-
India theater.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was the
yeah.
CBI theater.
Because that's, China and Burma and India. And that's where we did our thing.
And this said, I noticed at the top of it said, not for sale or distribution, for use by War and Navy Department agencies only, it
Mhm.
says. And it's got penciled in ones here, and it's...
Well, they'll have headings on them, because we draw lines and we put our protractor on there and figure out where we're going to
Yeah,
go.
they're numbers, like, to help show
Well, they
distance.
will tell you altitudes.
Oh,
Now, this area down here is a lot lower than the areas up here where Mount Everest is. See?
ah.
So we would go to the lower areas where you can get over at 12 or 13,000 feet, you can get over the hills in certain valleys. But don't stray too far left or right, or you're going into the hills.
And you said there were beacons in some of these
Yeah,
places to
they
help
would
you
have beacons
find
that
your...
would flash, 2 dots and a dash or something, and you could zero in on those with some of the equipment we had.
Huh.
So we'd fly until we got to that point, and then we'd take a new heading up to Kunming. But it wasn't as good as what the airlines have now. It was rather primitive.
Yeah, but that's amazing through, because a lot of that was jungle and everything too.
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
this over here is high mountainous ranges.
Oh, all this?
And this is jungle over here, and that's high mountainous
Oh, my
ranges.
goodness.
That time. And then French Indochina in the lower right-hand corner. I have flown a general from Kunming down there who's a Frenchman. And I didn't understand him, and he didn't understand me. He's got a map, and I look at it, and everything is in French. I can't read it. Didn't know where I was going. Well, we down to his airfield somewhere down there in the jungle.
Is
And
that right?
That's the one that...
You had to go by his map to get him down there? or
Well,
you-
sort of, yeah. And I'm trying to figure out what those names mean, because it's all in French. He had his own map of it.
Good grief.
We got him there, and we took off. And that's the one where they said, why don't you buzz it? And I buzzed it, and they said, are you on an altitude hop? They were insulting me. Well, I'm a transfer. I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm a transfer plane. We got him down there, and got back again. We had a lot of funny jobs like that, flying the American representatives or senators or something around to see what the war front is like over there. And then they go back and be experts.
Oh,
Foreign
yeah.
Congress, right?
Uh-huh. Where was that money? Now this,
Yeah, well, it's something we used when we were
That's,
there.
uh,
But,
very,
it
oh,
kept
see,
getting less valuable.
the Farmers
Well,
Bank of China.
You could,
One yuan, one, Y-U-A-N,
one?
one one?
No.
Huh.
After the war even, we could tell how the revolution was coming by the value we get the marketplace currency exchange rate. And if the currency of China is getting less valuable compared to our currency, then we knew they were hurting because the communists were arising up in Yunnan province in the northwest, and they were going to come down and sweep, as they ultimately did, Chiang Kai-shek and his guys almost in the sea. They finally ended up over in Taiwan.
Yeah.
That's where this might go now. They sure wouldn't recognize it.
They wouldn't recognize that anymore. We even after a while we could go out at night and all around the hills around that lake up there.
This one?
Yeah,
Tenchin?
we could see gunfire going on. Right
Oh,
along the
really?
road, because the communists are coming over and Chiang Kai-shek's guys are fighting them and stuff. But it wasn't our war then. We were
Yeah.
fighting the Japanese, so
Yeah.
we weren't
Wow.
involved in that particular fight. Well, maybe we should have been, but we weren't at that time.
You had all you could handle with what was going on. Goodness.
So, well, that sort of takes care of the Asia theater.
That's neat. That
We
is
ought to get back to the
amazing.
European theater pretty quick now.
Well, one other thing that I think you had mentioned was how they tried to reduce the morale of the men over there. Was that, where did I hear about that? How they would,
Well, you mean like gals like Tokyo Rose?
Yes.
Did you have your own version of Tokyo Rose in Europe somewhere?
Yeah. Who did we have?
Axis Sally?
We had Axis Sally.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, Axis Sally. And she, well, of course, I don't know. I think maybe she was maybe born and raised in this country, but she spoke just like any. And so did Tokyo Rose. I
Yeah,
think.
just like an
Just like an
American.
American?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, you know, they'd come on and they'd say, "Oh, you fellas, you know, look at all the time you're spending over here, and all the girls back home are doing." You know, I mean, they try to get guys
Demoralize her.
depressed, yeah, and
gosh.
oh yeah.
And were they working for the Germans? Is
Oh,
that
Oh
what they
yeah,
were?
yeah. You know, all
Now,
the
did you
stern
hear that
loving
kind of thing over there?
Well, that was
Only
Tokyo
very
Rose,
rarely.
see.
They had a Tokyo Rose thing, but I don't think I heard it more than 3 or 4 times.
Huh.
It's just it was something that was fading into obscurity by the time we got there.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And they, what was it, Bob? They, didn't Tokyo Rose, didn't they get Tokyo Rose and she came, stood trial or
I
something?
think she did
Oh,
stand
really?
trial on
I
that.
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened to her?
I
She
don't know
could
what
say,
happened.
My captors made me do it.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to Access Sally, but she did the same thing.
Yeah. Huh. So, what kind of food did you eat in general when you were, when you had these
Well,
areas
you
set up?
had, you had C rations, and you
What
had
was
K
that?
rations.
Are they certain things or just?
Well, your K rations came in a package, and you'd have a little can of, it was like a chopped ham type of thing, and you have a little envelope of bouillon, and powdered bouillon that you make. But what I used to do, and some of the guys, we'd sprinkle a little bouillon on top of this
The ham?
chopped ham. It was good. And sometimes to heat up the C rations, which would be a can like, not beans, but like that, you'd stick it on the manifold of a truck or a Jeep or something. You know.
It's hot, right?
Yeah, and then the D ration was a chocolate bar, about yay big. It's a real hard, dark chocolate. And you could live on it for a week probably, because the chocolate has a lot of nourishment in it and energy. And when you go to bite into it, you just sort of shave off a little bit of time, you know.
That's why it lasts as long as it does.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
Well, I had problems over Reno. I'd get dysentery once in a while and stuff like that. And then one time we're coming back, and we came over a high point called Fort Hertz. They don't call it that anymore. We came down. We were about 16,000 feet down. And I couldn't clear my ears because I'm catching cold. And what it did is it blew in, I guess, the eardrum in one ear, and put a little balloon on the inside because the pressure was building up and I couldn't clear the ears to equalize the pressure. And they, squirted a little sulfur powder and then said, okay, you're okay. But I haven't been okay ever since I've been slightly deaf.
That right?
I got service connected by.
Well, I could have applied for it, but I always felt I was indefatigable. I don't need that stuff. I'm all powerful. I'll live forever.
Sounds
I
like
wouldn't
grandma.
even
Yeah,
apply
right,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was dysentery caused from the water or
Who
poor?
knows,
A lot of things. See,
When I finally got back to New York City, or Michigan, really, I got on the scales, I weighed 118 pounds.
Oh my God.
Now I'm 175 now, so you know that was quite a long way down.
obviously, it's the same over there as in Europe. They warn you, don't drink any
water.
don't drink any raw vegetables, and don't drink the water. We'd have our own blister bags, they call them, and you put the chlorinator, make the water potable. But there's always some clown, he's gonna go and have some.
We had restrictions about tucking your pant legs in your socks. Especially every once in a while they'd have a movie they put on out in the open where you could go at night in case you have time to go.
Yeah.
But you have to put your pants inside your sock and get up this way and put repellent on and stuff and you watch the movie because they didn't want anything to be stinging you and they would carry something.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Well, we were talking about the Anopheles mosquito. of
Yeah.
course, which carries
Yellow
the
fever was, we used to take Atibrin, they call it Atrine, I think, Atibrin. And you take it and you turn them yellow, so they keep you from showing the symptoms of yellow fever.
Oh.
And once you do that till your term of duty is over, and then you quit, and then you get yellow fever. But
Oh.
it wouldn't affect you while you're still
While
at
you're
work.
there.
While you're there, right.
Yeah.
So you had to take that on a regular basis?
On a regular basis.
Oh my gosh.
And that was one of the things we didn't see in Europe.
Well, we're in a tropical zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were with, and not only that, we were with people, we did not speak the same language, but they were people like ourselves, and that's why you go to the South Pacific or Bahamas. Of course, the people like kind of from India and somewhere.
Nobody knows about it yet because Burma's been closed for a long time. They just don't.
Yeah.
A lot of guys come back over Jungle Rock and malaria.
And those that went down into New Caledonia and around that area.
Yeah.
I think that our distant cousin Wayne came back.
Yeah.
He never got rid of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. all that.
I guess these guys would jump, well, what his name? Mr. Norma and,
Oh, Hunt.
Yeah, he probably had.
he
the-
had Jungle Rod, I think.
Sure,
yeah.
I think he was in the same kind of outfit. They took a lot of them from the Big Rapids area, in Grand Rapids area,
Yeah.
and sent them to
Yeah.
New Guinea and where they went.
Yeah. Tom Hahn, he was in the Seabees, but he was in the South Pacific somewhere.
Yeah, right. But he was, but he'd seen, you know, guys get blown up and stuff close to him. Even though he was non-combat. He was
That's
a-
right, but they
He
were,
had a big machine that he would make airfields with.
they were,
Oh,
they
really?
were working with it. You know, I mean, close to
He
it.
was a conscientious objector,
Oh,
but
was
he
he?
still went, yeah.
Oh.
For religious reasons, he didn't want to fight. So they put him in the construction battalion that makes airfields. And he went from island to island in the South Pacific making
Wow.
airfields.
Yeah. So they didn't have to shoot or anything, but they were subject to
Yeah, he was
being shot.
subject to being killed, you know, just as
Yeah.
well as the next guy did.
Yeah, but he wasn't in a fighting.
He didn't want to fight back. He didn't want to shoot
Yeah.
somebody, you know, one of those religious things.
Yeah.
Did either of you have good friends that were killed while you were over there?
Not close.
Well, I wouldn't say they're good friend, but they were three guys. They never, when we were in basic training, they were never paying attention and so on. It happened to be a mail call one day, and we were down at Brest in France, and it was fortunate that it was mail call because one of these idiots picked up a grenade and threw it down on the ground. It didn't go off, picked it up, threw it down, it went off, and it killed all three of them. But the shrapnel blew holes in tents all around. If the guys hadn't been on mail call, who knows who would have been, you know.
Well, it was their own
It was their own.
inattention.
Yeah.
to
That's
what
right.
they're supposed to
And
do.
they were the ones that never, you know, they were always not paying attention.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've asked all the questions that I...
Do you want to write a name there?
We'll make a record anyway and see how that goes over. Hope everything is all right with you. Mrs. was over today and telling me you were out on maneuvers now. I wonder how long it'll be before I'm out there with you. I suppose it won't be long. Well, here I'm just like the women now. I don't know what they're...
He's dead now.
Maybe your wife, you know what to say. I don't know what to say now.
Hello, dear. I've been having the grandest time today with Tony and Theo and Renee. We've been playing all the old records we used to make where Jack would tell us long stories. And Theo made a nice dinner and we ate for hours. And we hope you're all right, hon. And I'll turn you over to Tony again.
Was that you?
The only thing that was missing today, the safety engineer, he's leaving for the coast today. I guess he left at 5 o'clock tonight, so he couldn't get over. But well, we tried to carry on without him around, and of course you too. Maybe in the next, we can all get together again and have some more fun. Well, I run out of words to say again. Maybe I should sing a song or something. Rapids, that's a long ways from Chicago too, Frank. I suppose one of these days we'll really be thousands of miles apart instead of hundreds, huh? Well, we'll try to think of something to put on the other side here to sort of fill this here thing up.
And the only way I knew that was Mom was when you said, "Hello, dear."
That sounded...
That sounded
Yeah.
like you. That was Grandma.
Now, when was that?
Well, this
That
is
point
side
on.
one, if you want to put, evidently, because he says it's gonna...
When was that sent to you?
When was this?
Yeah.
Well, I was on maneuvers, so it was in 19...
43.
43, then.
Wow.
Here's the news items of the week, Frank. I was downtown the other day, and I don't know if you're 127 North, Dearborn. Nobody else but the eminent Miss Cox. She's the all day worker. She takes them home with her and everything else. She's the manager now. What do you think of that, boy? I suppose she'll make a dark little one. Imagine she was the active secretary, so she should be the active manager's. She was making 110 a month as a secretary, so Cooper, he got a job, I guess, a civilian job with the Navy, so they promote her to manager. They save the salary they were giving Cooper and raise her salary to a month, leaving her with no effect. It was a true feat that only a company like Vardy could engineer. What think of you, pal? Well, that's the big news item of the week, I suppose. Maybe we should have your wife here, and maybe we can see what stay worth.
You should see Brenda May here. She's grown so big, talks and speak, and makes herself look like herself, 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 look like herself. Seal is still as good a cook as ever.
Who's
Now, Seal's gonna say something now. Come on, Seal. Come on. Hello, Frank. How are you? That's good. She was glad to see Eleanor today. What else can I say? Well, I'll pass it over to you. The records this are wrong.
When we get a news item as hot as the one I just told you, we'll make another record for you and send it down sometime, Frank. So long, boy.
Who was that lady?
Seal, his wife.
Oh.
Who all is talking?
Who was the good cook you were talking about?
Seal.
Seal? That is a riot.
And I'm just going to pull the cord and hop in the elevator, and you won't know who did it. But the elevator didn't come.
And you were
pretty
there.
soon he stuck his head around the corner, and there I stand. Egg on my face.
What was his first name?
Tony.
Tony Rasmussen.
Rasmussen.
And he was the maintenance man where Dad...
Yeah, in 127 North Dearborn. Daddy was manager, and that's where we met, because I worked in an office there. For a credit investigation agency that went broke. Their credit wasn't very good.
Oh,
Okay, which is
that's
number
neat.
one there?
That's sad one.
Okay.
And you could get a machine and just sit around it and make those records?
Uh-huh,
Rent-
Tony had it.
Oh, did he have his own or did he...
Well, see, he was when he was working there, he also did radio repair work. Of course, that was in the days before television. Did radio repair work and so on. Well, then he opened up a shop, and he went full-time in his own shop. So he had a recording machine. I think that was the one we used when we made it to Bill Belton when he was out in Texas, and over at his mother and father's house, and had them say a few words and so on.
That's a neat thing.